virtues, and character strength for ethical decision making. And a subtitle is The Journey of Heroes, The Joy of Discovery. Para sa mga taga-Tarlac City, baka kasi una ko itong pinresent sa mga taga-Tarlac City, yung mag-alala dito sa presentation ko, yung mga Tarlac City. Okay, before we start, can I request all participants first to open in another browser, menti.com. Kasi gagamitin natin itong application na ito para maging interactive tayo para sagutin yung mga tanong during my presentation. So, bibigyan ko kayo ng panahon para buksan yung i-type lang ninyo sa doon sa browser ninyo yung URL na menti.com, tapos i-open ninyo yung menti.com. Taas lang ng kamay ninyo kung tapos na kayo. So mag-sample tayo. Okay, mag-sample po tayo. Doon sa browser na menti.com, meron doon na isang box para doon sa code. So i-enter ninyo yung code na 649676 at sagutin ninyo yung tanong. Okay, meron na akong nakita ng mga sagot. Okay. Sige. So far, at least gamay na natin. Alam na natin kung anong gagawin. So sample lang yan. Lumilitaw na 21% the reason for their motivation to attend this webinar is that they were chosen by their supervisors. Then 7% is because of new learnings. They want to have new learnings. And 20% for professional growth. Okay? So, nadadagdagan pa para sa kwan. So, at least, meron ng alam na natin kung paano gamitin itong menti.com. Okay. Furthermore, if you have questions as we proceed during this presentation, you can use the chat box to write your questions, or after the session, you can raise your hand and I will recognize you if you want to ask questions personally online. So, okay na po. So, let's stop na po dun sa votation. Dali lang po. Okay, so a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Our life is a journey. We all journey through life and in our journey, kung minsan, merong nauuna, merong nahuhuli. Naalala ko pa nung ako ay isang principal, merong sinabi sa akin ang mga faculties, "Sir, we are all behind you." Napaisip ako. Tapos sinabi ko sa kanila, "No, I don't want you to be behind me. I want you all to be beside me." Kasi sa isang paglalakbay, gusto ko sabay-sabay para nakikita natin ang isa't isa. Kung sino ang nahuhuli, sino yung napapagod, sino yung nangangailangan ng tulong. If you are behind me, paano kung makikita kung sino nga ang may problema sa ating paglalakbay? In DepEd, we have this, no child left behind. Pero paano nga ba natin ito sinasakatuparan? Sinasabayan ba natin ang ating mga mag-aaral sa kanilang paglalakbay? Ngayon sa pandemic na nararanasan natin ngayon, sabi natin, we heal as one. Ngunit alam natin, patuloy ang pagtaas ng mga kaso at pagod na ang ating mga frontliners. Merong nangangamatay. Sabay-sabay ba tayo sa paglalakbay na ito upang magawa nating magkapit-bisig para ang mga pagod at nanghihina ay magkaroon ng lakas upang ituloy ang paglalakbay? A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. At para sa akin, araw-araw ay nararapat lamang na gumawa tayo ng hakbang. At itong araw na ito ay simula ng isang hakbang tungo sa isang mabuting landas. I believe that your presence in this webinar is not by chance alone. You made a big decision to be here despite and in spite of any circumstances that we are in, because you believe that this single step will make a big difference for whatever purpose we may have. Tulad dun sa sample na question, meron sa atin, kaya nandito tayo, yung purpose natin is because tayo ay napili ng ating supervisor. Meron namang iba dahil gusto nila ng professional growth. Yung iba, gusto nila ng bagong kaalaman. Yung iba, hindi alam. Di alam kung bakit. Or kasi in-invite sila ng kanilang mga kaibigan. So, let us look back in memory lane in our journey as teachers. So, our personal journey, let's find a word or phrase or symbol that depicts the message of our journey. In the beginning of our journey, what personal beliefs encouraged me to be a school teacher, a supervisor, or a government employee? What are the positive images or characteristics about your profession that encourage you to be a school teacher, a supervisor, if there are supervisors, or a government employee? Answer this question. You go to menti.com and encode the code 277T23, 277023, and give your answers. Wala pang sumasagot. Okay. Sige. So yung mga sagot, ang lumilitaw is uh, service to young generation. Love, for me, it is my vocation. Journeying with the youth. Ganda noon, journeying with the youth. I love to teach. Love for learning. Share knowledge. Passion. Okay? Vocation. Okay? So lumilitaw, marami is they feel that teaching is a vocation. Okay, sige, tuloy lang. So mamaya papakita ko sa inyo yung result ng ating ginawang pagsagot. Let me continue. So what are the common themes in our journey stories? Yung common theme is that ito, lumilitaw na vocation. Vocation ang pinaka nakikita hindi pa ano, share ko ito na stop sharing ko muna tapos i-share ko yung common themes. Okay. Yan. So what personal beliefs encourage me to be a school? So lumilitaw ito. Vocation, passion, service, calling. Okay. So marami ang nakakakita. So ito yung common theme na lumilitaw doon sa mga sagot natin. That teaching, you're basically your reason for being a teacher is because you felt that it is a vocation. You have that passion for service. There is a calling, a service to the young generation. Let's proceed. So the second, so as we journey, we continue our journey. So the question, points of reflection that I would want you to see is, why do you continue to be a school teacher or a supervisor or a government employee important to you? What does being a school teacher, a supervisor, or a government employee mean to you now? So ano yung halaga? Ano yung kahulugan ngayon ng pagiging isang school teacher? Especially in the midst of the pandemic, especially in the midst of this crisis, okay? In the midst of the new normal, na kung saan nangangapa tayo bilang mga guro kung paano natin i-deliver yung edukasyon sa ating mga kabataan. So again, go to menti.com and code the code 885017 and answer the question. Eh, ganda. Ganda ng sagot. Kasi love. Ang kahulugan ngayon ng pagiging sangguro ay pag-ibig, life, buhay, okay? Passion. So lumilitaw na kanina nakikita natin na ito ay isang calling, isang vocation. At dahil ito ay vocation, mayroon tayong passion para sa vocation na ito. Kahulugan nito ngayon ay may passion, may pag-ibig. Ito ay isang buhay para sa atin. So, based on these images and messages, ano ba ang itinuturo sa atin nito? So, itinuturo sa atin yun mga sinagot nyo. Ang higing sa buo, especially that we are ESP, Values Education Advocates, we see that being a, being a teacher is passion. Being a teacher is love. Okay? Kahit sa crisis, nandyan tayo. May commitment tayo na magsilbi, maglingkod, okay, in our own personal capacities as a teacher. So therefore, we do not just look at our teaching as our profession, just merely a job. Okay? It's a calling, it's a vocation. Now, in our school, how do we look at our school? Do we feel that we belong to our school rather than a place to survive? Do we look at our school as truly a home? Or in general, nararamdaman ba natin sa DepEd na pamilya nga talaga tayo? Nararamdaman ba natin bilang mga guro na pinahahalagahan tayo, na tayo ay bahagi, kabahagi tayo? Nararamdaman ba natin yung sa mga desisyon na ginagawa, nakasama tayo sa mga desisyon? Kung titingnan natin, especially at the start of the pandemic, nakita natin kung paano at the higher ups, no, sa DepEd, naglabas sila ng DepEd order, eh, as teachers and as teaching personnel and even the non-teaching personnel in schools and in offices, eh, we are not required to go to our schools. We are not required to go to our offices. Ako nga ngayon, work from home because senior citizen na. Okay? Kasi may mga iba't ibang pamamaraan kung paano pwede tayong maglingkod, magsilbi. Kasi primordial for DepEd is the safety, the health and safety of its constituents, the teachers, the learners. Okay? So I hope we feel that we really belong. We really feel that we are part of a home, of a family. It's not just a place to survive. Kasi kung place of to survive lang, kasi kapag pagod na tayo, wala tayong maaasahan. Di ba? Kapag pagod tayo, gusto nating umuwi ng bahay. Sinasabi natin, there's no place like home. Because at home, we feel it is our comfort zone. We feel that we rest, we can rest because there are people who supports us. There are people who would really care for us and who would understand us. In our work now, as teachers, can we infuse meaning as well as engage and energize the school as our family? What gives meaning to our work are the things that holds us dear. Yung bang tagline ng isang coffee commercial, para kanino ka bumabangon? Hindi ka lang gumigising, bumabangon ka ng may dahilan. Kasi merong kang pinapahalagahan. Kaya may meaning. Kaya ka bumabangon, kahit na pagod ka, kahit na alam mo na ang daming trabaho din sa bahay, pero bumabangon ka araw-araw kasi may halaga, may kahulugan yung pagbangon mo. Okay? Kasi meron kang pinapahalagahan. Now again, go to menti.com and enter the code 635359. Okay. And answer the question. The question is, what are values for you? Tingnan natin, ano? We are values education advocates, ESP teachers. Okay. Let's see if we have a clear idea of what our values are. If we really have a clear grasp of the real essence of values. Okay. Guidance in our lives. Principles. Reflection of who we are. Okay. Character. Okay. So principles, lumilitaw ng pinaka-essence na lumilitaw ay principles at character. Yun ang dalawang word na nangingibabaw, principles and character. Sige, let's have a crash course in values, about values, crash course in the foundations of values education. Okay. During our MAVE course, it was made mention to us that there are two basic kinds of values. One is one is the subjective values and the objective values. Pwede pong yung mga naka-open na mga microphone, paki-mute lang po na po. Thank you po. Okay. So in education in values is best understood when we have that awareness that in our understanding, the understanding of many people of what values are, there are several and perhaps conflicting interpretations and definitions of values. And therefore, as values education advocates, as ESP teachers, we have first to explain these values. That there are objective values and there are subjective values. That's why yung sinasabi natin na values are taught and not taught, it's half truth because values are both taught and taught. Okay? Bakit? Kasi may mga subjective values, may mga objective values. And when we talk of the objective values, we talk of the absolute moral values which originate from without. Okay, nanggagaling sa labas. Kaya kailangan ituro. Okay? Kailangan ituro kung ano itong mga moral values. Kailangan i-train ang tao para matutunan itong mga moral values na ito. Pangalawa ay yung subjective values. These are the cultural values which emanate from within. Bakit emanate from within? Kasi halimbawa, yung pagmamano, natutuhan yan sa loob ng bahay. So from within siya, from within society. Yung mga cultural values natin dito sa Pilipinas, iba doon sa cultural values ng mga Amerikano, ng ibang bansa. Therefore, kung titingnan natin, itong mga cultural values, relative ito, subjective. Ibig sabihin, depende. Okay? Ito yung mga nagbabago. Okay? Ito yung dapat nating maunawaan. Kasi kung minsan, nalilito tayo kaugnay ng kung ano yung mga values. Kaya sinasabi natin, parang nagbabago yung mga values ng mga tao. Pag pinag-usapan natin, yung nagbabago ang values ng mga tao, baka ito yung mga cultural values. Kasi dati, yung pagbabano, makikita natin, talagang kinukuhang kamay. Ngayon, in our modern times, wala na yung pagmamano. Makikita natin, beso-beso. Pero, ano o yung above that particular cultural value? Ano yung value doon? It's respect. So yung respect, ano yan? Absolute yan. Hindi nagbabago yung respect. Okay? Kundi yung pamamaraan kung paano natin ipinakikita yung respect, maaring magbago, depende sa kultura, depende sa henerasyon. Okay? So, ito yung dapat natin maunawaan in terms of these two basic kinds of values. I think there would be a talk on the dynamic, the interrelationship of moral values and cultural values, and therefore I would not preempt the speaker. Kasi ito nga, may dynamic relationship between moral and cultural behavior values. Kasi kailangan maunawaan natin, ma-distinguish natin yung mga cultural values at yung mga absolute values. Pero merong there is a clear relationship between the moral and cultural values. The dynamic relationship between moral and cultural behavioral values maintains that when matters or issue or decisions of right and wrong are encountered, cultural values must be firmly rooted in the moral law. So, halimbawa nga, okay, meron tayong cultural behavioral value of respect for the elderly. Okay. Yung respect for the elderly na yan, okay, ay kailangan nakaugat doon sa pinaka mataas na pamantayan natin ng kung ano ang respect. At yun ang moral values. Hindi yun pwedeng magbago. Yung respeto. Yung pamamaraan, yung cultural ways of how we show that respect, it can change. But over and above this, it is rooted in a particular moral value. The dynamic relationship also of between moral and cultural behavior values warns us that whenever behavioral and cultural values are distorted to serve personal selfish interest, it violates the ethical conduct, the universal truth and principle of moral law. So, kung yung cultural value natin ay bumabangga doon sa kung ano ang tama at ang mali, okay, ang moral value, ito ay nagva-violate doon sa kung ano ang ethical conduct, ano ang universal truth, yung prinsipyo ng moral law. And therefore, kung may banggaan between the cultural value and the moral value, therefore, dapat ma-upheld yung moral value. I'll give a concrete example. In these times, pinag-uusapan sa DepEd yung sex education. And when it comes to sex education, dun sa posibleng lumabas na modules ng DepEd in terms of sex education, okay, hahayaan ang paggamit ng mga kondom para sa safe sex. Kung titingnan natin, merong mas mataas na value in terms of moral law. At ano ang moral law? Ano ang law when we talk of sex? That sex is sacred and therefore it should only be between two married persons, between married couples, and could never be used for any other purpose because the end of sexual act should be the offspring of children. Okay? Pagkakaroon ng mga anak. So, kung ito ay bumabangga, kasi sinasabi, kasi nagbago na ang mga kabataan ngayon. Kasi ang mga kabataan ngayon sexually active and therefore we have to protect them. But how should we protect them? At the expense of the moral values of our people, at the expense of the moral values of our young people. So ito yung sinasabi natin, dynamic relationship between moral and cultural value. Kailangan mangibabaw yung moral value over the cultural value. That our cultural values should always be rooted in the moral principle. But it should be ethical and it adheres to the universal truth of what is right and what is wrong. Why is this? Because the very foundation of moral values is God. When we say God is the foundation of moral values, ang tanong nga dito sa ang tanong nga dito sa picture this, can a person be good without God? Pwede bang maging mabuti ang isang tao kung wala ang Diyos? Okay. Kasi when we say God is the foundation of moral values, we recognize God as the divine lawgiver. Siya ang nagbigay ng kung ano ang mga batas moral. He reveals his design for all creation in the eternal law and his principles which govern man's behavior in the moral law. That God gave us the 10 Commandments. Basically, the 10 Commandments for us Christians, these are our basic moral standards. Standards of what is right and what is wrong. God, as the foundation of moral values, affirms that when there is conflict between civil law and the natural moral law or the moral values, what must be upheld are the moral values. Kasi dapat yung lahat ng mga civil laws natin, yung mga civil laws natin na yan, rooted dapat sa natural moral law. Kung ano ang likas sa tao, ano ang kalikasan sa atin bilang mga tao. It acknowledges that the moral law is written in the hearts of men, and therefore it can be recognized, it can be discerned, it can be known by everybody, regardless of whether you are a Catholic or a Christian, even those who are in the far-flung areas who have not been reached by Christianity. In the heart of men, alam niya kung anong tama at anong mali. Hindi kailangan malaman nila o makilala nila si Kristo para malaman kung anong tama at mali. Kasi likas sa tao likas sa atin bilang tao na malaman kung ano ang tama at ang mali. And civilizations can prove this, di ba? That's why, like for example, during the pre-Hispanic era in our country, okay, alam nila na masama ang pagnanakaw. Kaya nga, may batas sila na kapag nagnakaw ka, yun nga lang, ang kanilang batas doon ay batas ng Old Testament. Okay? Ngipin sa ngipin. Okay? A tooth for a tooth. Okay? Yung batas nila, an eye for an eye. Okay? Kung ikaw ay nagnakaw at ang gamit mo ay yung kamay, ang magiging batas, ang magiging kaparusahan sa iyo, ipuputulan ka ng kamay. So, ito yung alam, okay? Likas sa tao. Hindi kailangan na maging Kristiyano ka para malaman ng tao kung anong tama at mali. Kasi nandoon siya. Sinilang siya na alam niya kung ano ang tama at mali. And that is the golden rule. Okay? Okay. Do unto others what you want others do to you. Or yung golden mean, do good and avoid evil. Yun palagi. Okay? Kahit na bata pa siya, kahit na yung batang nagsisimula pa lang maglakad, alam na niya kung ano masama. Kapag ilinagay niya ang kanyang kamay sa mainit, sa apoy, okay, alam niya, maiinit, kaya iiwasan niya. Kasi alam niya, yun ay masama para sa kanya. Okay? So ito po yung ibig sabihin ng God is the foundation of moral values. It aims to develop that innate capacity in us, cultivate the natural inclination to do good and avoid evil. There is in us, it is natural for us to do good and avoid evil. Okay? Likas sa bawat tao na siya ay maging mabuti at iwasan kung ano ang masama. Ito ang ibig sabihin ng kung paano, bakit ang foundation ng values education talaga ay umuugat sa Diyos. An understanding of values would lead us to the question of what are the things that we want most as human beings. So ano yung tingin ito? Okay, sinasabi na mayroong dalawang bagay na talagang gustong-gusto natin, na mas talagang mahalaga sa atin. In making decisions, we are always confronted with choices. Kasi life is all about the choices you make in life. At kadalasan, itong mga choices na ito ay mga moral dilemma. Posible ang nagbabanggaang mga choices is good versus good. It's not always good versus evil sa mga choices natin. It's a lot of times it's between good versus good. At alin ang bibigyan natin priority? Parehong good sila Pareho silang mabuti. And therefore, we have to understand ano yung mga hierarchy. Ano yung mga ranking natin ng mga kinahahalagahan natin sa buhay. Ano yung mga essential? Ano yung mga most essential? So kung sa curriculum may mga most essential learning competencies, pag sinabi natin most essential, ito yung mga priorities. Ito yung kung ano ang dapat na matutuhan ng mga bata upang sila ay mabuhay, upang magkaroon ng lifelong learning. Okay? The same true with life. The same true with us. Okay? Itong mga choices, paggising pa lang natin sa umaga, may mga choices na Okay? Lalo-lalo na ngayon tag-ulan, for example, umuulan. Ang sarap matulog. Pero kailangan kang bumangon kasi kailangan mo magluto, for example, para sa iyong pamilya. So, dalawang good. Hindi masama ang matulog. Parehong good siya. Good versus good. And ano ang priority natin? And our priorities would be the basis of our actions in making decisions when we are confronted with choices. So here are the two things that we really want most. One is happiness. At ano yung ibig sabihin natin ng happiness dito? Sabi, it is an experience of joy and deep sense of contentment. They are the moments of life. So experience, deep sense of contentment. Kontento na tayo. Masaya, merong silakbo ng pagiging masaya. Kasi bakit may silakbo ng pagiging masaya? Kasi kontento ka na. Pero paano ka magiging kontento? Yung question dito. Paano magkakaroon ng total happiness when we talk of happiness, merong contentment? Philosophically, it says happiness is the stable and perpetual possession of the good, which is totally perfect. It is desired for itself and satisfies all our desires, and which fulfills all the demands of man's nature. So stable and perpetual possession of the good. So possession ng good, which is totally perfect. Kasi kung hindi perfect yan, hindi ka magkakaroon ng happiness. Magiging pabago-bago yung magiging decision mo. So sabi, it is desired for itself and satisfies. Sinasatisfy yung lahat ng mga desires natin. Magandang halimbawa dito yung mga, di ba, sa panahon ngayon, ang daming mga brand ng mga, every now and then, may mga brand ng mga cellphones, ng iPhone. Ilang buwan lang, nagbabago. Okay. May mga tao na naghahangad na meron na siyang, kabibili pa lang yan ng kanyang cellphone na bago dahil may bagong brand, may bagong labas na gusto na niya. So, hindi siya nakokonsult. Hindi yon ang sinasabi nating happiness. Maaring masaya siya nung nabili niya kasi dinisar niya yon. Pero after some time, dahil may bago na naman, wala na yung happiness. Wala na yung saya. And that is not what we mean by happiness when we talk of what is the most important thing that we want in our life. That total happiness. That when we have that thing which is good, it satisfies us. And who is that? It is only God. It is only God that can give us that total goodness, that satisfaction. Second is meaning. So meaning, when we talk of meaning, here it's a sense of purpose, finding a call, leaving a legacy or connection to something outside of ourselves. Kaya nga, ang ganda na ng mga sagot natin eh. Bakit ka naging guro? Kasi it's a calling. Kasi gusto mo na magkaroon ng halaga sa mga kabataan. May share mo yung iyong kung ano meron ka sa mga kabataan. Okay? So ano yung ibig sabihin ng meaning dito? Okay? Every action should lead to the last end in order to live one's integrity based on one's human nature. Bumabalik at babalik tayo sa kalikasan natin bilang tao. Sino tayo? Kaya kailangan makilala natin sino ba ang tao? Ano ba ang tao? Okay? And lahat ng actions dapat natin papunta dun sa last end natin. And when we talk of last end, we are not talking of death here. No? We're not just talking of death. Okay? We're talking of ano ba ang purpose? Kanino ba tayo bumabangon sa araw-araw? So the last end is the absolute good. The longing is a total happiness, permanent, everlasting, which is only to be found in God. So it is God who created us. We all have to go back to God because our ultimate end is God. Parang may nawala. Okay, may nawala. Okay. Okay, sige. Uh, so yung katuturan na pinag-uusapan natin dito ay yung kung ano yung ultimate good. Ano yung pinaka mabuti o yung tinatawag nating summum bonum. Yung summum bonum na yun, who is God. Sabi nga ng isang scientist na si Pascal, sabi niya, there is a God-shaped vacuum in our heart, in the heart of each man, which cannot be satisfied by any created thing, but only God the Creator made known through Jesus Christ. At another saint, Saint Augustine, a bishop of Hippo, said, our hearts are restless until they can find rest in you. Kahit kung titingnan natin yung puso natin hindi siya perfect shape. Meron siyang vacuum. Yung vacuum na yon, alam natin, hindi yung mga material things. Hindi yung mga tao na nasa paligid natin ang magpupuno doon sa vacuum na yon. But only God can fill that vacuum. If only we really see that our ultimate end, the ultimate end of every human being should God. And therefore, all our action should be geared towards that ultimate end. And that is, we have to find God in our actions. So, hence, if God is our ultimate good, then all our actions should be attuned to the purpose He has for us. It is only then we can find meaning in our life. All our actions must reflect the goodness in us. Therefore, to have meaning in life means we have to improve the quality of life. And improving the quality of life means we should not degrade human life. Thus, when a man violates the right order of moral values, he does not ordinarily refer to matters of taste or mood. No man in his right mind will justify murdering an enemy by claiming that he happened to be at the moment of the crime in a murdering mood, or killing a drug addict because he is an addict and justify that it is for the greater good. No one will excuse a philandering husband, sporadic adulterous relationship by insisting that once in a while he simply happens to develop a taste for women other than his wife. That does not make sense at all because moral values are not determined by subjective tastes and moods. The end does not justify the means. Murder and adultery are objectively and absolutely evil. They are non-values for all men now and always, and will continue to be evil even if a number of men who may perceive them as good and pleasurable would grow. Kahit dumami pa ang mga tao na nagsasabi na pwedeng makikabit, pwedeng pumatay, basta para sa kabutihan ng marami. Hindi murder and adultery are absolute evil in terms of moral values. The second is to right what is wrong. When people complain to the government, it is not because they want to criticize the president. Hindi dahil sila ay dilawan at hindi DDS. kundi bilang tao na nilikha ng Diyos, we have the moral duty to right what is wrong. Nung napanood ng marami, ang kamakailan lang, ang episode na online class ng Vincentiments, maraming mga guro ang nagalit dahil doon sa pagmumura. Sabi, ito ay degrading para sa mga guro. Sinabi natin na hindi tama ang ginawi ng estudyante. Pero ito ang tanong ko, bakit kung ang presidente ang nagmumura o nagsasabi ng rape jokes, ang daming tumatawa at ang dali nating bigyan ng justification at sasabihin, presidente naman siya. Do we have a different standard of what is right or wrong? Depende ba ito sa posisyon ng isang tao? As values educators and advocates, how can we write what is right? How can we write what is wrong if we ourselves have a distorted view of what is right and what is wrong? As values education teachers and advocates, we have to have a firm understanding of what is right and what is wrong. Not because a person with authority does it makes an act good. Hindi dahil karamihan ay nangungurakot ay tama na ang korupsyon. There are absolute, unchanging moral values. Sabi nga ni Edmund Burke, the only thing necessary for triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. Kung tayo bilang mga values education teachers and advocates believe that we are good men and women, then we have to stop evil. We have to do something. We have to move forward. If not, triumph of evil will come. The third point when we talk of having meaning in life is to prevent the good from eroding. How can we prevent the good from eroding? We must not be silent in the face of injustices. We have to stand firm in our moral values and conviction. Sabi nga sa Biblia, in Revelations 3:16, and I quote, "So because you are lukewarm, neither hot nor cold, I will spit you out of my mouth." Si Desmond Tutu, in terms of in our social life, sabi niya, if you are neutral on situations of injustice, you have chosen the side of the oppressor. Kasi sa buhay natin, sa paggawa ng desisyon, hindi tayo pwedeng maging neutral. If we are good people, we always have to stand firm with the good. We always have to side with the good. Okay. We cannot forever be neutral. We always have to take side. And taking side is to take side for what is good. Always for the good. Silence is not the answer to what is happening around us. Sa nangyayaring hindi maganda, parang naging manhid na tayo. Parang nawala na ang social conscience natin. Okay. Ito yung sinasabi ni Martin Luther King, that our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. Ano ba ang mahalaga? Mahalaga ba ang kabutihan? Magkaroon ng kabutihan sa mundo? Therefore, we shall not remain silent. We should always speak out what is good. And only our students can know what is good if we speak out what is good. I want you now, final Question. I want you now to go to menti.com and enter the code 755778 and answer the question. And while answering the question, let's have a 3-minute break.
Sir, ano po kasi yung number ulit?
Ito po, 755778. Nasa chat box po, nilagay ko po.
Sige po, salamat.
Okay, time is up. Okay. In our modern world today, being on the side of the good is a tough decision. Okay. It's a tough decision. Making that decision, we have to understand that it will affect our tomorrow. Therefore, in making decisions, we have to be careful. Okay? Because any big decision would have an effect not only upon ourselves, but all on the people around us. So decision making is actually the formation of our intellect and will. Alam natin ito, okay? Doon sa mga tuturo sa ESP, na yung sa values education, kailangan ma-form ang intellect para at ng tao. Ano ba yung ibig sabihin? Crash course again, okay? Ano ang ibig sabihin ng formation of the intellect and the will? Okay? Whatever is presented as good in our mind, sabi nga ni St. Thomas, the intellect proposes and the will disposes. Ang ibig sabihin na kung ano yung pinipresent na good sa ating isip, in our mind, we act on it. It is the will that takes action for what our mind or the intellect tells us. That is why, very important na ma-form yung minds natin and especially as teachers, the minds of our learners. Kasi yun ang role natin. We have to form the intellect of our students so that they may be able to make decisions in life, and their decisions are good decisions. So developing our intellect means that it has to develop of how we form ideas, how we make judgment, and how we reason out of the ideas and the judgment that we make. So the intellect discerns a value and present to the will as right or wrong value. Pag ang intellect natin ay may distorted view of right and wrong, talagang magkakaroon ng malaking problema. Kasi yung actions natin ay nakabase doon sa kung ano ang finifeed ng ating intellect. Kung tayo mismong mga teachers, hindi natin ma-discern kung ano ang fake news o hindi, at tayo pa ang nag-share ng mga fake news, ano ang asahan natin sa ating mga learners? Kamakailan meron akong nakita at na nanggaling sa isang SEPs ng Central. Okay. Sabi niya, nakakalungkot kasi pinakita na yung senior ay fake news. Sabi niya, nakakalungkot, sabi niya, na mismong mga guro natin ay nag-share ng ganitong mga fake news. Nakakalungkot nga kasi kung tayo, mga guro, ay hindi ma-discern kung ano ang fake news at ano ang hindi, paano pa na ma-discern ng ating mga aral, ng ating mga estudyante kung ano ang tama at ano ang mabuti. So formation of the intellect is actually being able to form true judgments and reason based on truth. Kaya importante na ma-develop ang critical thinking ng ating mga learners. Pero dapat nagsisimula sa atin. Kasi ang critical thinker, hinahanap ang katotohanan. At pag nahanap ang katotohanan, ipaglalaban ang mabuti at totoo. Kahit ano pa ang consequence niyan. Hence, when our intellect is formed to what is true and good, we have the will to act on the true and the good, and have that strength of character to avoid what is evil, but this has to be habitual. Kailangan inaaraw, habit na ito ng buhay natin. At kapag naging habit na ito, yung values na yon nagiging virtues. O sa Tagalog, bertud. Ito ang bertud. When we talk of virtues, these are habitual values that are being practiced. Or kung misvalues naman, ito ay mga vices o mga bisyo. So, other way. Okay? Kung nagiging habit na siya ay maging sinungaling, at dahil para mahalaga sa kanya ang pagsisinungaling, then, nagiging vice o bisyo na yon. So as a summary of what we talk of the intellect and the will, it is clear that nothing is willed unless it is first known. Thought must precede the deliberation of the will. An object is willed as it is known by the intellect and proposed to the will as desirable and good. Hence, the formal and adequate object of the will is good as apprehended by the intellect, according to William Kelly, 1965. So, yun kaya kailangan yung intellect natin ay ma-form ng maayos para ma-discern, malaman niya ano ang tama at anong mali. Nasa pag-form pa lang ng mga ideas, alam niya kung ano ang right ideas and wrong ideas so that he will be able to come up the right judgment. And when he has a right judgment, when he reasons out for what is true and good. It is then in this process that we make decisions as human persons with intellect and will. Because as human persons, we are both physical and spiritual beings. our decisions, therefore, must be ethical. So what is ethical?
Iranya, pakialaman. Pakialaman.
Hello po, Sir Cabrera. Hello po. Ano? Ay, hindi ko alam yung gagawin. Hello?
Yes po, sir. Ano po yun?
Nasa hospital po kasi ako kaya di ko nakuha yung last na gagawin.
Sige lang po, mamaya na lang po, sir, yung mga concern po ninyo.
Hindi, yung last na pinapagawa activity, di ko nakuha kasi nasa hospital ako. Hindi ko alam nasa activity niya.
Nasa chat box po yung, ano sir, yung code.
So basically, ethics is the very foundation of values education. So natutuwa ako dahil dun sa sagot ninyo, kaya nakita natin dun sa video, no, that we have we really have to make decision based on the trust that is given to us. So kahit na sasabihin natin na it is for the good of everybody, pero importante yung trust. So in terms of ethical, kaya natutuwa ako kasi talagang values education teachers tayo, no? Values education advocates, because we know when we are confronted of two decisions, two good decisions, we know what our priority is, we know what our principles is. So here we can see that at the very foundation of values education, we are talking of ethics. We're teaching of our students of what is right and wrong. So what is good for man according to what he is also the reference point for what is moral. Since morality is the relation of human acts to the last end, or to what is good according to human nature. In the video, it says according to our purpose. And our purpose in life is always going to the ultimate end, the summum bonum of our life, which is God. So basically, yung tinitingnan natin, yung kaya nga sinasabi natin, ay yung batang yan walang values. Pag sinabi natin, ang batang yan walang values, we're talking of what is right and what is wrong, of what is good and what is evil. So, ibig sabihin, ang pinakapundasyon talaga na dapat itinuturo natin sa mga mag-aaral natin in terms of values education is ethics. In our journey as we have looked up to others who have inspired us. We consider them as our heroes. And this journey continues. Bakit? So hindi na hinto sa atin nung nahanap natin yung ating mga heroes. Because there's a hero in each one of us. And we have to find that. Okay? We have to see ourselves as heroes now. Dati noon, naghanap tayo ng mga hero natin, mga inspirasyon natin sa buhay. Ngayon, as values education teachers, as teachers, we have to bring inspiration. We have to be heroes for others. And then we have to find that hero in each one of us. Okay, this is a true story of a young man who was favored to win the 400 meter in the Barcelona Summer Olympics. Yun. However, along the way during the 250 meter run, okay, merong nangyari. Okay? At pakitingnan, ayan, yung sa video, kita natin. Ayun siya. Bigla siyang nabuwal. Okay? Bigla siyang nahinto. Bakit? Kasi yung hamstring niya, it was torn. So, he hobbled into a halt. Okay? Kaya huminto siya. Pero hindi yun ang mahalaga dito sa video na ito. Okay? I would want you to focus after that when he fell down because he could not run anymore. So, nung nakita ito ng mga tao, mayroong stretcher, okay, para buhatin siya. Pero hindi siya nagpumunta sa stretcher, tumayo siya, and then paika-ika na itunuloy niya yung kanyang takbo. And then, tingnan natin, ano? Sabi, suddenly, a large man pushed through the crowds. Tingnan natin. Okay? Merong isang mama dyan, ayun siya. Okay? Umalis siya doon sa crowd, pinuntahan niya yung kay kang tumatakbo. Okay? At ito, ang kanyang tatay. Tapos sabi nung runner, why do you have to do this? Sabi ng tatay, why do you have to do this? Pwede naman tayong huminto. Sabi niya. So sabi niyang anak niya, no, Dad, I have to do this. And I can do this. Then sabi ng tatay niya, kung ganon, sabay tayo. Well then, we have to finish it. So the father wrapped his arms around his son and helped him hobble through the track. Dito, makikita natin kung sino yung hero. Okay? At ano ang ibig sabihin ng pagiging hero? Kung saan, kung kailan dapa ka, merong isang tao na may isang tao na tutulong sa atin para tayo ay bumangon. Okay? At tayo yun, bilang mga guro, hinahanap ng ating mga mag-aaral ngayon kung sino yung kanilang mga hero. Okay? And in these times of pandemic, we have to be strong. We have to be like that father. To be father and mothers to our students who wanted to continue their education in these times of pandemic. Again, sabi natin, we have to go to our end, God. Kasi si God, ganun siya eh. He always is there to help us in spite and despite our shortcomings. So, it's important that we see that we can become heroes. Okay? We all have dreams. We all want to achieve those dreams. Our learners have dreams. Pero naghahanap sila ng kanilang mga heroes. Bibiguin ba natin sila sa panahong ito? Hindi lang sana sa panahon ng krisis, kundi sa lahat ng panahon, kahit na babalik tayo sa old normal.
Sir, wala pong sound. Sir, wala po yata siyang sound.
May sound siya. Wala pang sound.
Wala pa po.
Meron naman siya dito. Meron na.
Wala pa po, sir. Wala pa pong sound.
Kaya,
Yung sa iba po, meron po ba kayong sound? Paki-comment lang po sa chat box natin kung meron po kayong sound. Wala din daw po sila, sir.
wala pa rin.
Wala pa rin po.
Anyway. Anyway, ito sana ay pakikita ko about teacher Sabrina ng Kulyat Elementary School. Okay? Yung experience niya bilang isang guro, paano siya gumagawa ng desisyon para sa kanyang mga mag-aaral. Ito ay buhay ng isang ordinaryong guro at alam ko sana relate na relate tayo kasi tagus na tagus sa puso ito dahil sinabi din niya yung pinagdadaanan natin bilang mga guro. May mga times na especially during the old normal, kapag bumabagyo, kapag malakas ang ulan, sabi niya, may times na ayaw natin pumasok. Okay? Sabi nga niya, akala ninyo, sabi niya, mga estudyante lang ang ayaw pumasok. May mga times din na mga guro, sabi niya, ayaw pumasok. Dahil pagod na sila, nakikita nila na parang walang nangyayari sa buhay ng kanilang mga mag-aaral. Pero eventually, gagawa siya ng desisyon na para sa kabutihan ng kanyang mga mag-aaral. Dahil alam niya kung anong tama. So, na kailangan niyang na magkaroon, mag-make ng difference in the lives of our learners. So, yun siya, no? So, mahalaga sana na malaman natin kung ano ang mabuti. Kasi doon dapat nagbe-base kung ano yung ating mga decisions. Yun ang magpapalakas sa atin na tahakin ang landas ng new normal. So, mahalaga na na marunong tayong makinig. Una sa lahat, makinig sa ating sarili. Kasi hindi mahirap. Sabi na nga, it's not hard to make decisions when we know our values. Sabi nga ni Socrates, and I quote, "Know thyself, because it is knowing ourselves can we give to others, and those others are our learners. They are waiting for us to be their heroes in the midst of COVID-19. So listening is where love begins, sabi, listening to ourselves and then to our neighbors. So pag nakinig tayo, hindi lang sa sarili natin, kasi kapag nalaman natin, nakilala natin ang sarili natin, it would go out. Sabi, the real value of listening is that it leads us outside of ourselves and eventually back into who we are, according to Mark Nepo. Sa ating pakikinig, mahalaga na makita natin ang ating kapwa, hindi lamang ang ating mga sarili. Kung nauunawaan natin ang pinagdadaanan ng ating mga kapwa, hindi tayo magiging pipi, bingi, at bulag sa kanilang mga hinaing. Because basically, our profession as teachers has a social dimension. That more importantly, as human persons. As values education teachers and advocates, our role is not just confined in the four corners of the classroom or today the virtual classroom in the new normal. But it goes beyond that sphere. Our conscience leads us outside of ourselves. When our individual consciences direct us to the ultimate good, we form our collective conscience. Hindi na tayo magiging manhid sa mga nangyayaring kahihiyan sa ating paligid at sa ating lipunan. Babalikwas at kikilos tayo. Yan ang hamon sa atin bilang mga values education teachers. Tunay na matutuwa talaga tayo sa pagbabalik ng GMRC sa ating curriculum kung ang bawat isa sa atin ay gagampanan ang ating papel na tunay na magiging bayani ng ating mga kabataan. And at the end of the day, when we our ultimate end, our summum bonum, we can say, mission accomplished, Lord. So if there are questions, comments, or concerns, Meron po? Sir Floyd, meron ba mga tanong sa chat box? Hindi makita kasi.
Muli po, maraming salamat po Sir Wendell para sa siksik, liglig at umaapaw na pananalita at mensahe. Very refreshing po sa amin, lalo na sa akin din po, no, yung pagpapasiklab uli ng bukasyon at pagpapaalala kung bakit ako o bakit kami ESP teachers. Maraming salamat po Sir Wendell sa oras po na inyo pong binigay mula po sa APNIEVE Philippines po at kasama po ng mga guro na nandirito. Sa pangunguna rin po ni Dr. Baybay. Muli po Sir Wendell, maraming salamat po. Kung may mga tanong po kayo,
na binigay, sana ay nagkaroon tayo ng sigasig uli bilang mga guro, especially in this time of pandemic. God bless us all. Pagpalain tayo na ng Panginoon.
Maraming salamat po. Sir, yung mga may tanong po siguro, pwede po tayong magtanong.
Yes, sige.
Kung may mga tanong po tayo regarding po sa mga ano po natin, sa ESP po natin, kung may mga tanong po kayo regarding sa topic po ni Sir, pwede po tayong magtanong. Unmute na lang
Salamat
po
po,
natin.
sir.
Unmute na lang po natin sarili natin, pwede po.
Mag-ibitan na lang tayo. Sana.
Isa-isa lang po, yung po may mga tanong. Isa-isa lang po muna kung sino po yung may mga tanong po.
May tanong ka. Wala.
Open na lang po natin yung microphone po natin kung may tanong po tayo. Yes, Madam Melissa po. Ma'am Melissa Marie Miranda. May tanong po tayo. Naka-open po kasi yung mic.
Sabi naman Sir Floyd, wala naman daw mga tanong. So siguro dito na tayo magtatapos. Kung wala na talagang mga tanong.
Okay po. Muli po, Sir Wendell. Maraming salamat po hanggang po sa susunod, sir. Maraming salamat po.
Maraming salamat.
Thank you po, sir.
Maraming salamat po.
Maraming salamat po, Sir Wendell.
Sir Wendell, thank you po.
Bye-bye. Thank you very much.
God bless po.
Bless po.
God bless.
Bye-bye.
Thank you po.
Thank you po.
Thank you po.